Today's carry is the Strider SA, a Monkey Edge exclusive in CPM 3V, which you'll see today. The whole carbon steel tool steel thing will be kind of a theme. I love this knife. As you can see, I've used it a lot. Actually, the video I had planned to do today is to destroy my 6+ that died on me this week with this knife, but I left that knife over at a different house, so that'll have to come at a later time. Now, let's roll the intro. Today's carry is the Strider SA, a Monkey Edge exclusive in CPM 3V, which you'll see today. The whole carbon steel tool steel thing will be kind of a theme. I love this knife. As you can see, I've used it a lot. Actually, the video I had planned to do today is to destroy my 6+ that died on me this week with this knife, but I left that knife over at a different house, so that'll have to come at a later time. Now, let's roll the intro. Okay, it feels like forever since I did a video, but I believe it's only been a week. Today, I have 3 different knives on the table, all from the same family, all from the same company. The Para 3, the Para 2, and the military. Now, I was doing a bunch of unboxing videos. However, I figured last week, I think it was, I was getting so much stuff in, I just really thought it would be too overwhelming, and plus I really didn't have the time. So this knife is actually one of the knives that came in last week. This is the Para 3, in CPM crew wear. So this is one of the sprint runs. It is perfectly centered. As you can tell, the action is great. There's 0 blade play. Pretty good little knife, but I'll get more into my thoughts on that later on. Really what I want to do today is to kind of compare these 3. Actually, and I know this might sound strange, if you follow my Instagram and you've looked at my YouTube videos, you can tell that I'm a pretty big Strider guy and that I'm a pretty big hard use knife type guy. But actually, the knife that I've probably owned the most is the Para 2. I want to say, if I had to put a number on it, I've probably owned in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 Para 2s. Great knife. The knife is nice and slim. It's a great slicer. Plenty of blade to do whatever you need to do. It's not a knife that's so thin that if I needed to do something reasonable, I wouldn't mind using the knife. Great all-around EDC knife. Good grip, comfortable, ergonomic, you know, just really fits my hand. And again, if you don't know, I have an extra large glove sized hand. So when you see this knife, you might want to keep that in mind, because I know my hand is larger than most people's hands. So this is probably the knife that I've owned the most, but it's the knife that I've sold and rebought the most as well. So I'm going to start here from bottom to top, just give you some basic specs, and maybe do a little bit of talking about the knives. But I really just wanted to kind of show all 3 knives today and kind of show everyone how they stacked up. And actually, I'm going to turn these because I always talk about the optical illusion that gets created when you line them up the other way. So that is pretty much the size difference visually you can see there. So I'm going to start with the smallest one on the left, which is the Para 3. The Para 3 has a handle length of 4.27 inches. It has a blade length of exactly 3 inches and an overall length of 7.27 inches with a blade thickness of 0.15 inches. So as a lot of people have noted, this blade stock is pretty close to the Para 2 and to the military, if not exactly the same in real world usage, because we all know specs are specs, but these are all made by machines. Machines wear, parts wear on the machines, the abrasives wear on the machine, so there's going to be some variance in each knife. But for all intents and purposes, all three of these knives are pretty much the same thickness. And for such a short blade, a 3-inch blade, some people have said they would prefer to see something a little bit thinner. So I can't really say that the thickness is a pro or a con for me. It works fine. I haven't used it a ton, just got it last week. I've been very busy. Usually during the week I carry a slip joint, as you might know. So this knife has not seen a ton of use. So that's really based more on my use with these knives and the little bit of use I've gotten out of this knife. Pretty good knife. In the hand, it's very comfortable in this grip, as all of the knives are. But as you can see, with my extra large hand, that handle just disappears. So what I find is when I'm holding it in more of a regular grip, more of a grip like this, I find that it feels a little bit cramped here. I can put my thumb back here where I feel like it was designed for my thumb to be. However, it's more natural, and if I just rest my thumb, it goes on top of this hump. And this can work, but it's not the most ideal. So I do think that, unfortunately, this knife is a little bit small for me. Now, we all know, we're all knife guys. Just because something isn't perfect, we usually still try to just live with it if we like a product. And as you can tell, I like this family of knives, so I'm not really in a hurry to get rid of this model here. I'm probably going to hang on to it and use it, see what I think about it long term. So that's the Para 3. The Para 2. The Para 2 has a closed length, a handle length of 4.81 inches. So there's the knife, 4.81 inches. It has a blade length of 3.44 inches, and it has an overall length of 8.28 inches. So it's really only about an inch different overall. So the overall length is not that different. The blade length is 0.44 inches longer, and the handle length is roughly about, right in the same ballpark, 0.5, 0.4 inches different. However, as you can tell, like I said, if I just take my thumb and just place it down, my thumb naturally falls right on that jimping. So this is a better fit for my hand. Again, the handle doesn't disappear quite as much. That extra half an inch really makes a difference. So, and this one is actually a sprint run as well, and this is in CPM M4. So that is the Para 2, and as I said, this is probably the knife I've owned the most, and probably one of the knives that started the whole knife thing for me. This knife here is, I'm sorry, I didn't mention the blade thickness on this. The blade thickness on the Para 2 is mentioned as 0.14 inches. However, like I said, for all intents and purposes, all of these blade stops are pretty much identical. The military has a handle length of 5.50 inches, so this is not a small knife at all. It has a blade length of 4 inches, so this is 1 full inch longer than the Para 3, and it is about a little over half an inch longer than the Para 2. So again, we're about a half inch difference in the blade length. And we're also we're a little bit over half an inch difference in the handle length. So the spine thickness is 0.16 inches. So you can see it does appear a little bit thicker, but like I said, for all intents and purposes, when you're using this, this is in practice pretty much identical to this, and I'm going to assume pretty much identical to the Para 3, which, as I said, I'm not going to speak directly to that because I don't have a ton of use on this knife. However, if you saw my post, I got tagged to pick my top 5 knives. As you can tell, there is some HDCI on the blade, which is an Aegis Solutions product, which I just found out today that unfortunately James is going out of business. So hate to hear that, but I still use as much product as I have left over. So that's what that is on the blade, because all of these are, again, this one is 52-100, which again is a carbon steel. It's a steel that it will obviously stain and or rust if you don't keep up with it. Now, I don't have a big problem with steel staining or rusting, but when I put this away, because I don't carry it a lot, because it is a big blade, and this is a knife that if you're out in public, this is going to draw some attention. It's going to scare some people, but this is one of my favorite knives if I'm going to do a lot of food prep type things, if I'm going to break down a bunch of boxes. I mean, it's 4 inches of just pure slicing blade. Good steel, holds a good edge, just a worker knife. You can see that here in my hand. Again, you can see how much larger that handle is. Keep in mind, I wear an extra large glove, so you can tell how big this knife is. You can see here in the grip I've been discussing, there's obviously no issue. If I just rest my thumb, again, it falls right down in that place. And I know I keep showing it with my finger in this forward choil choked up. If a knife has a forward choil, I pretty much always choke up. So I know some people may carry their knife or hold their knives back here like this, but I always choke up. Stryders and all the other knives that I have. So this knife is also a liner lock, and I have to tell you, this knife came that smooth. I mean, this knife is very smooth. The one thing that I would have liked to see, and this is kind of getting off the specs, getting off of the use, as you can obviously tell, these are 3 sprint run knives, 3 different models. This is a little bit of a collector thing, and I like to use my stuff. I don't like to just collect, but I would have really liked to see the Para 3 come out in a carbon steel with carbon fiber handle scales, because as you can tell, both of these are sprints with the peel ply carbon fiber. Both of these are carbon steels, so it would have been terrific if this carbon steel knife would have been in carbon fiber as well. But you know, it came in gray G10. I'm not against it. I know a lot of people talked about the color. They preferred the darker G10, but I think this is going to be pretty cool looking once you get some use on it and gets a little bit dirty. One other thing I wanted to point out, like I said, there's not a huge difference. Oops, there we go. There's not a huge difference in these knives. There's about a 1/2 inch in the blade and 1/2 inch in the handle. One of the differences that I noted was the blade profile, and I believe you can see it there. If I line these up pretty much exactly, that Para 3 sticks up a little bit more, so it's a modified version of the Para 2's blade. Now, that's not a huge issue, but like I said, for me, maybe if this was a little bit less of an aggressive hump, maybe that would make it a little bit more comfortable. It's not something that I feel like I can't carry, but my thumb just feels like it's kind of jammed up in there a little bit. You can see how high my thumb naturally wants to rest, so if I put it down there in that jimping, it's a little bit high up on the spine of the blade. So that's my thought on the Para 3. That is how these knives line up. I've shown them closed, so now I'll show them open. And you can see here, you can see there how they line up when they are open. That's all I really have to say about these knives. Great family of knives, great everyday carry knife. I had this conversation with one of my buddies maybe a week or so ago. If I had to pick one knife that was a realistic knife to use, and I was going to use it just for general everyday carry, opening mail, cutting sandwiches, cutting string, opening a package, just basic everyday use type stuff, cutting tape, maybe a little scraping, maybe a little light prying, I really think that the Para 2 is a hard knife to beat. And I think the fact that the Para 2 constantly still sells out and is somewhat hard to find depending on the model you're looking for speaks to that. And I think the fact that there are so many different models currently in production, that also speaks to that. This is an incredibly popular knife for a reason. So if you haven't experienced one, or you haven't experienced one of the models, I would definitely suggest trying it out. Great knife for everyday carry, great knife for realistic use. I love my Stryders, but if I had to have one knife just for realistic everyday carry, I couldn't have any more, and I didn't want to buy something, you know, run of the mill, you know, like a Gerber or a Buck or something like that. Something that I could walk into Walmart and find. Well, at least my Walmart. I know some Walmarts do carry some Spyderco products, but if I wanted one reasonably priced knife that wasn't on the super low end, but it wasn't on the high end, and it was realistic thickness, realistic size, good enough for everyday carry, Para 2 is hard to beat. So guys, I appreciate you watching my video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great weekend.